A rebellious bride runs away from her waiting, crashing into a stranger's car, who turns out to be a hidden billionaire. Ava, you will walk down that aisle in 30 minutes, and I don't want to hear another word about it. Henry Parker's voice thundered inside the ornate bridal suite, making the delicate crystal sconces tremble. He was a tall, commanding figure, his thinning hair meticulously combed, his tuxedo a picture of stern elegance. His daughter, Ava Parker, stood in front of a gilded mirror, clad in a lavish white wedding gown that clung to her every curve. The sweetheart neckline framed her anxious face and trembling shoulders. She turned away from the mirror to face her father, her cheeks burning with frustration. "Dad, you're not listening," she snapped, tightening her grip on her bouquet. "I can't marry Oliver. I don't love him. We haven't had a real conversation in months. This is all about merging your company with the Harringtons' empire. It has nothing to do with me." In the corner, her mother, Diana Parker, fussed with a pearl necklace, eyes darting anxiously between father and daughter. "Ava, sweetheart, I know this isn't what you imagined, but think of the family. Think of our reputation and your future." Ava's stomach twisted at the word future. Her entire life felt like a chessboard, with her as the pawn in a strategic alliance. "No," she said flatly, stepping away from her parents. "I won't do it. I'm not some bargaining chip." Henry's face hardened, a flush creeping up his neck. "You'll do as I say. Oliver Harrington is a fine young man, polished, influential. My company depends on this partnership. You know we're on shaky financial ground. This wedding will secure everything." Ava's heart pounded. For months she had tried to negotiate her way out of this marriage. She had begged, reasoned, and even threatened to leave home. But Henry Parker was resolute, and Oliver Harrington was always the dashing fiance who never took no for an answer. The Harringtons were old money, with a vast shipping conglomerate that could rescue Henry's flailing real estate business. She saw the reflection of her mother in the mirror, tense, lips pressed thin. Her mother had always taught her to be graceful, to keep the peace. But Ava was done playing the compliant daughter. She wanted a life of her own making. "If you walk out on this wedding, you'll regret it," her father threatened, voice low. "We'll lose everything, Ava. Everything." Diana looked pained but didn't contradict him. It was the final blow that cracked Ava's facade. Clutching her bouquet so tightly that her knuckles went white, she glared at Henry. "Then I guess I have to do what's best for me." Before her father could stop her, Ava snatched the train of her gown and bolted past her wide-eyed mother. She flung open the suite door and rushed down the corridor, ignoring the gasps of wedding staff and a distant Ava. From Oliver, who stood at the end of the hallway in formal attire. Her heels clacked on the polished marble floors. She yanked them off mid-sprint, hitching up her dress so she could move faster. The adrenaline propelled her through the ornate lobby of the hotel, where the ceremony was to take place. Wide-eyed guests turned, stunned, to see the bride flying out of the front doors. "Stop her," she heard Oliver yell, but no one dared to intercept the runaway bride. Outside, the midday sun struck Ava's eyes, momentarily blinding her. She refused to slow down. Her heart hammered against her ribcage. She sprinted across the circular driveway, scanning for an escape route. A row of parked cars lined the curb. She spotted her father's black limousine at the far end, and some guest sedans sprinkled about. Without pausing, she dashed toward an old convertible, the only car with its top down, hoping the keys might be in the ignition. As she vaulted into the driver's seat, her gown spilling over the center console, she realized with dismay it was empty of keys. "Need help?" came a startled voice from a young valet. He'd been wrestling with a parking stub, clearly confused by the sight of a frantic bride in a sweaty wedding dress. Ava's breath caught. She had no time for explanations. "I need a car, now." He stammered, I can't just." But her father's voice echoed from the hotel entrance. "Ava, don't you dare get in that car." She leaped out of the convertible, scanning the street for another option. A sleek silver SUV idled at the curb, hazard lights blinking. No driver was in sight. The engine purred softly. A better shot. Desperate, Ava hoisted up her dress and lunged for the SUV. She found the driver's door unlocked and scrambled inside. The interior smelled of expensive leather, and some contemporary jazz played softly from the radio. This vehicle reeked of money. "Please God, let this be easy," she muttered, fumbling to shift into drive. Suddenly, the passenger door yanked open, and a man in a crisp shirt and dark slacks tumbled in, eyes wide with alarm. "What on earth?" he exclaimed. "I'm sorry," Ava yelled, pressing down the accelerator. but I need to borrow your car." "Borrow my car? Who are you?" he demanded, voice deep and urgent. His protest was cut short as the SUV lurched forward with a screech of tires, careening around the circular hotel driveway. The momentum slammed the door shut. Ava gripped the steering wheel, trying to navigate the exit, while the man grabbed the dashboard. "Slow down," he shouted. "You'll crash." A furious figure, Oliver, dashed into the middle of the driveway, forcing Ava to swerve violently. She managed to swerve around him, the dress tangling around her legs. She felt the SUV clip a decorative planter, sending a shower of pottery shards across the pavement. "Watch it," the man next to her hollered, bracing himself. Heart pounding, Ava careened onto the main road, ignoring the stares of pedestrians and the frantic shrieks from behind. For a split second, she glanced in the rearview mirror. Her father and Oliver stood at the hotel entrance, furious and astonished. She exhaled in a rush, tears burning her eyes. "I'm free." But the realization was overshadowed by the presence of the stranger in the passenger seat, this man she'd effectively kidnapped. Her arms trembled as she tried to steady the wheel. The man took a deep breath, then spoke in a calmer tone. "You want to tell me why you just hijacked my SUV?" Ava swallowed. "I'm really sorry, but I had to get away from that wedding. I promise I'll figure out how to compensate you. Just let me drive for a bit." A flicker of concern crossed his handsome features. He had sharp blue eyes, short dark hair styled with precision, and a certain aura of cool confidence. "You're running from your own wedding? In a stolen dress or something?" She bit her lip, tears threatening to fall. "No, it's my dress. The wedding was real. I just couldn't go through with it." He studied her for a moment. Then, to her surprise, his tense expression softened into something almost amused. "Well, if you're determined, you might want to watch out for that." Before he could finish, a delivery truck pulled out from a side street. Ava jerked the steering wheel, the SUV swerved and slammed. They clipped the truck's bumper, then jolted to a stop with a sickening crunch of metal. The radio sputtered, then fell silent. Ava's knuckles turned white, and a faint whimper escaped her lips as she stared at the cracked windshield. Smoke wisped from the hood. "Oh God," she breathed, pulse thundering in her ears. "What have I done?" She turned to the stranger. He was pinned back against his seat, chest heaving, but seemed uninjured apart from a dazed expression. "You crashed into a truck," he murmured. "My truck, apparently. Or my SUV. How's that for a first impression?" Ava could only gape, tears staining her mascara. She had run away from her wedding, and within minutes destroyed someone else's car. If her father's wrath hadn't sealed her fate, this fiasco might. Little did she know that the man beside her, irate, stunned, and suspiciously composed, was far from an ordinary victim. In fact, he was a billionaire trying to keep a low profile. And her impulsive choice had just entangled their lives in ways she could never have imagined. 30 minutes later, Ava and her reluctant passenger were standing on a sidewalk near the wrecked SUV, waiting for a tow truck. The air smelled of burnt rubber, and passers-by gawked at the sight of the disheveled bride in her shredded wedding gown. The man, who introduced himself as Daniel Brooks, pinched the bridge of his nose. "You do realize this puts me in a complicated position. My car is shot, and I was on my way to a meeting." He had hesitated before saying meeting, as though fumbling for a vague word. Ava couldn't help noticing the expensive watch on his wrist and the way he carried himself, exuding an air of quiet authority. But her immediate concern was the police cruiser now pulling up to the scene. 2 officers stepped out, eyeing them with curiosity. One was a tall woman with a firm gaze, the other a younger man still adjusting his cap. "What happened here?" the female officer asked, glancing from the damaged SUV to the bride and groom-like pair. "You folks okay?" Ava's shoulders tensed. She could picture her father's connections ensuring she'd be found. She cleared her throat. It was an accident. I turned too sharply and clipped that truck. No serious injuries." Daniel stepped in with surprising calm. "Yes, officer. The collision was unfortunate. It's my vehicle. We'll handle the insurance and towing. Neither of us is hurt." The officer arched an eyebrow, noticing Ava's attire. "Miss, are you in any trouble?" Ava felt Daniel's gaze flick toward her, as if silently urging her to keep it simple. She mustered a small smile. "No trouble. I just, left a wedding situation." The officer seemed unconvinced but asked for driver's licenses. Ava's heart sank. She'd forgotten her purse in the bridal suite. She apologized, explaining she had no ID on her. Daniel smoothly produced his own license and assured the officers they'd settle the damages. In the swirl of details, the officers eventually let them go with a warning, no official charges, as Daniel insisted he'd handle everything privately. Ava felt a surge of relief, though guilt gnawed at her for causing all this chaos. When the tow truck finally arrived, Daniel sighed, surveying the battered SUV. The front panel was crumpled, and fluid dripped onto the asphalt. He signed some paperwork, leaving instructions for repairs. Meanwhile, Ava huddled in a corner of the sidewalk, shivering under the pressing heat of the day, her adrenaline fading to exhaustion. "So, what's your plan now?" Daniel asked once the tow truck rumbled away, his voice gentler than before. Ava rubbed her arms, blinking back tears. I don't have one. My parents will try to drag me back. Oliver, my ex-fiancé, won't stop until I'm humiliated or forced into that marriage. And I have no money, no phone. I left everything behind." Daniel inhaled slowly, glancing at her torn gown. "Where do you live?" She shook her head, voice trembling. "At my parents' house, but obviously I can't go there. I need to lay low somewhere just until I figure out my next move. It's not safe for me in that environment. My father can be intimidating, especially when it comes to business." A flicker of sympathy, or perhaps frustration, crossed Daniel's face. He checked his watch, something that looked sleek and expensive. Then he seemed to wrestle with an internal debate before speaking again. "All right. I have a place in the city, a small loft that I sometimes use. You can stay there for a day or two, until you get your bearings." Ava's eyes widened. "You'd do that for me? After I just crashed your car?" "Well," Daniel replied, a faint humor creeping into his voice, "it's a terrible idea to leave you stranded. And maybe it's safer if you're out of sight. But keep in mind, I'm not a chauffeur or a guardian. Once you're on your feet, you'll need to figure out a real plan." She gave a grateful nod, tears threatening again. "I understand. Thank you." They ended up hailing a taxi, which was an awkward affair given Ava's dramatic appearance. The driver shot them curious glances through the rearview mirror the entire ride. No matter, Ava was too drained to care about more judgment. When they reached a sleek high-rise in a quieter neighborhood, Ava expected some grand penthouse, especially from the way Daniel carried himself. But the building was modern and understated, not flashy like the mansions she'd grown up around. He led her through a minimalist lobby and up an elevator to the 17th floor. His loft, though not enormous, was impeccably furnished with designer touches, polished hardwood floors, a few abstract paintings, and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. The open-concept kitchen gleamed with brushed steel appliances, sparse but refined. Ava gawked despite herself. "You call this a small loft? It's incredible." Daniel set his jacket on the back of a leather sofa. "It's a place to crash when I'm in town. I mostly live elsewhere." She bit back the urge to pry about where elsewhere was. Instead, she hovered by the doorway, feeling self-conscious in her ruined wedding dress. A broken seam flapped around her waist, and the once pristine lace was smeared with grime. Do you have anything I can change into?" she asked softly. He nodded, disappearing into a side room. Moments later, he returned with a simple black t-shirt and drawstring pants that would undoubtedly be too big but better than the dress. "Bathroom's down the hall on the left," he said, handing her the clothes. "I'll put your dress in a bag once you're done with it. Or throw it away, if you prefer." Ava stared down at the tattered fabric, the final reminder of the life she was leaving behind. She nodded in acceptance. "I don't think I'll need it anymore." Inside the bathroom, she peeled away the layers of satin and lace, tears springing unexpectedly as she recalled her mother's proud smile during the last fitting. She tossed the gown in a heap on the floor. After washing up, she slipped into Daniel's clothing, the soft cotton overwhelming her smaller frame. Yet it felt comforting, almost like a protective shell. When she emerged, Daniel was in the open kitchen, placing 2 glasses of water on the counter. He gestured for her to sit on a stool. "So," he began, "tell me the short version of what brought you to hijack my SUV and crash it. I get the wedding was forced, but I'm guessing there's more." Ava sipped water, then recounted the basics: how her father's real estate firm was in trouble, how Oliver Harrington's family offered a bailout if the two families united in marriage, and how she felt suffocated by a lifetime of obligations. Daniel listened intently, his face thoughtful. He didn't interrupt, only occasionally nodding. When she finished, he let out a long breath. "That's a lot. I can see why you ran." She bit her lip. I'm sorry you got pulled into my mess. If it weren't for you, I'd probably be dragged back already. I just need a day or two to figure out my next move. I'll find a job, maybe in another city. Start fresh." Daniel set his glass down, expression guarded. "A day or two, sure, you can stay here. But this can't be a permanent solution. I'll help how I can." Gratitude flooded Ava. "Thank you. I'll pay you back for the car repairs. It might take me some time, but I promise I will." He waved a hand dismissively. "Don't worry about that right now." Night fell over the city, and exhaustion overtook Ava. She crashed on the plush sofa while Daniel retreated to a different room. It was the first time she felt remotely safe all day, but her mind buzzed with uncertainty. Little did she know that Daniel Brooks was far more than a kind stranger. His discreet elegance hinted at wealth, but the reality was more complex. He was a hidden billionaire, an entrepreneur who had amassed a fortune while carefully maintaining a low profile. The next days would test both their boundaries, and soon enough, Ava's father and Oliver would not rest until she was back in their grasp. Ava woke the next morning to the smell of fresh coffee. She found Daniel in the kitchen, wearing casual jeans and a fitted t-shirt, reading a news article on his tablet. The large windows bathed the loft in warm morning light. "Morning," he said simply, handing her a mug. "Hope you slept well." She managed to smile, still feeling awkward in borrowed clothes. "Better than I expected, given everything." He nodded, tapping on his tablet. "You should see this," he murmured, angling the screen toward her. A local news headline read, "Runaway Bride, Chaos at the Parker Harrington Wedding." A grainy photo showed Ava sprinting across the hotel driveway in her gown. Another shot featured Oliver looking outraged. Ava's stomach lurched. They made it a media circus. Daniel's brows furrowed. "Public curiosity sells. Your father's name was mentioned. Seems they're calling you rebellious, reckless, some sensational nonsense." She rubbed her eyes, frustration knotting her insides. "They don't know the truth. And now my dad's going to be furious with me for hurting his reputation." Daniel gave her a level look. "So what's the next step? You mentioned looking for a job somewhere else. But do you have any experience, references, a plan?" Ava took a sip of coffee, flinching at how harsh it tasted. "I have a college degree in business administration, but my father never let me work for real. He always said I'd just marry well." The bitterness in her tone hung in the air. She set the mug down. "I'll figure something out. Maybe start applying to places under a different name. I just need a safe place to stay until I can finance a real move." Daniel paused, as though contemplating something. "You could lay low here for a bit. But if your father's determined, he might track your phone or credit cards. You'll need to be careful." She nodded, a faint tremor in her fingers. "I'll pay in cash if I go out. If I run out of cash, her voice trailed off. She'd left home with no wallet, no phone, nothing. Daniel studied her. "Look, I might be able to help you more than just giving you a couch. If you're serious about finding work, I have a small startup branch that could use some administrative help. It's not glamorous, but it's legitimate experience." Ava blinked in surprise. "You have a startup?" He shrugged. "I invest in various ventures. Some of them are managed locally. You'd have to pass an interview, of course, but I can put in a word. The pay's modest, but enough to get you on your feet." Something stirred in Ava's chest, a glimmer of hope. "I'd be grateful just to have a chance." Daniel gave a curt nod. "Then we'll set it up. In the meantime, keep a low profile." That afternoon, Ava decided to venture out briefly for toiletries and some clothes that actually fit. Daniel insisted on accompanying her, wary of her being recognized. They slipped into an upscale department store in a less busy part of town. Ava felt acutely aware of her precarious situation. One slip up, and her father would have the entire city searching for her. While she browsed, Daniel stepped aside to take a phone call. Ava admired a modest blouse, ignoring the pang it dealt to depending on Daniel's finances yet again. But just as she moved toward the fitting rooms, she caught sight of a familiar silhouette near the entrance, her father. Henry Parker, flanked by two associates, scanned the store. He looked furious, pacing with his phone in hand. Panic seized Ava's chest. She ducked behind a rack of jackets, heart pounding. Seconds later, Daniel reappeared, noticing her ashen face. "Ava, what?" She gestured frantically toward her father. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Let's move. This way." They hurried along the perimeter, weaving behind displays. Her breath came in shallow gasps, every step a jolt of fear. If Henry caught her now, he might drag her home by force, or worse. She could almost hear his enraged shout. Yet the store exit was blocked by one of Henry's men, scanning the aisles. With no obvious way out, Daniel quickly guided her into an employees-only corridor. A harried staffer started to protest, but Daniel flashed a serious look. "We're sorry, emergency. We'll be quick." They slipped into the stockroom, dimly lit and cluttered with boxes. Hiding behind tall shelves, Ava clung to Daniel's arm, trembling. She could hear footsteps echoing in the corridor, muffled voices. Henry's voice boomed, "Find her. She has to be here. She ruined everything, and I won't tolerate disobedience." Ava's stomach churned. She'd seen her father angry, but never like this, hunting her down as though she were a fugitive. Daniel wrapped a reassuring arm around her shoulders, silently urging her to stay calm. Minutes stretched like hours. Eventually, the footsteps retreated. Daniel inched toward a small window, peeking outside. Then he motioned for Ava to follow. Together, they eased the window open and slipped out into an alley behind the store. Her heart hammered so loudly she thought it might burst. Daniel quickly hailed a passing taxi, and they climbed in heads low, giving an address 2 blocks from his building to avoid suspicion. Inside the car, Ava slumped against the seat, tears stinging her eyes. "He's really after me," she whispered. "I never thought he'd stoop to searching random stores." Daniel's jaw tightened. "He's determined. We'll have to be more careful." That night, back at the loft, Ava was too shaken to sleep. She paced near the windows, anxious thoughts swirling. How long could she hide? Would her father's men find the building next? Eventually, she wandered into the kitchen, where she found Daniel staring at a financial report on his laptop. He closed it abruptly when she approached, but not before she caught a glimpse of the numbers, millions in transactions. "You do more than just invest in startups, don't you?" she asked quietly, suspicion dawning. "These are massive sums. Who are you, really?" He exhaled, rubbing his temple. "I was hoping to keep things simple, but I guess you deserve an explanation." Daniel revealed that he was the founder and majority shareholder of Brooks Consolidated, a conglomerate with holdings in tech, real estate, and several other industries. To maintain a semblance of normalcy, he often operated under shell companies and discreet ventures, rarely appearing in tabloids or big media. Ava's eyes widened with every word. "You're a billionaire." He shrugged. "I prefer entrepreneur. The billionaire label invites trouble, people wanting favors, false friendships, or, in your father's case, business alliances." She sank onto a stool, shock mixing with gratitude and confusion. "So you're not just some quiet guy with a fancy SUV. You're basically on par with the Harringtons, if not above them." He nodded. "Yes, if your father found out who I was, he might attempt to exploit me. That's why I keep a low profile." Ava's mind spun. It was all too surreal. She'd run from a forced wedding into the arms of a hidden billionaire. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then a strange laugh bubbled out of her. "So we're both in hiding, in a way. I'm hiding from my father, you're hiding from the public eye." Daniel offered a small, wry smile. "Seems that way." She took a shaky breath. "I won't tell anyone your secret, but thank you for trusting me. And for helping me. You don't owe me anything." He glanced away, a hint of unease in his posture. "Perhaps I just couldn't leave you to fend for yourself. And maybe I'm tired of living as if I can't trust anyone." Their eyes met, and in that moment, a spark of understanding passed between them. Ava felt her heart tighten with an emotion she couldn't quite name, respect, gratitude, maybe even a flicker of something deeper. In the days that followed, Daniel arranged for her to interview at one of his smaller companies, using her middle name, Ava Grace, to keep a low profile. The manager, ignorant of Ava's real identity, found her intelligent and offered her a position handling administrative tasks. For a short while, life gained a semblance of normalcy. Ava commuted quietly, living in Daniel's loft and paying him a modest rent from her new salary, though he insisted it was unnecessary. She relished the independence, grateful not to be under her father's thumb. Yet a sense of impending confrontation hung over them like a storm cloud. Ava knew Henry Parker wasn't the type to give up. Sooner or later, he would find her. A crisp autumn breeze swept through the city as Ava hurried from the train station toward the office where she worked. A sheaf of papers clutched in her arms. The sun cast long shadows on the sidewalk, and she was already late from a morning meeting. Rounding the corner to the building's entrance, she nearly collided with a familiar figure, Oliver Harrington. Her heart lurched. He wore a tailored suit, looking every bit the polished heir to the Harrington fortune. His eyes lit with triumph when he recognized her. "There you are," he said with a smug smile. "I've been searching for you for weeks." Panic flared in Ava's chest. She glanced around, hoping for a quick exit, but Oliver had positioned himself to block her path. "Oliver, I'm not going back. Leave me alone." He stepped closer, voice low and menacing. "Your father tried to handle this quietly, but you vanished. Do you have any idea what chaos you caused? The partnership is off the table unless you return." Henry's at his breaking point. She clutched her papers tightly. "I'm done being a bargaining chip, and I won't marry you, Oliver." Oliver's lips curled in a sneer. "So this is how it is? You're working as some low-level admin? Think that's independence? You're going to throw away your entire future for a desk job?" Ava felt anger boiling. "I'd rather work an honest job than marry someone who sees me as a business transaction." His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. "We're leaving. Now." A surge of fear electrified her. She yanked her arm free, stepping back. "Don't touch me," she hissed, tears pricking her eyes. In that charged moment, an expensive black sedan pulled up. The rear door opened, and Daniel emerged, wearing a sharp navy suit. He strode forward with practiced composure, though Ava saw the tension in his jaw. "Is there a problem, Oliver?" he asked, voice deceptively calm. Oliver's eyes flicked to Daniel, surprise turning to recognition. "You Daniel Brooks?" He let out a bitter laugh. "So this is why she left me at the altar. She found someone richer to run away with." Ava's face burned with indignation. "I left because I never wanted you. The money has nothing to do with it. Daniel just helped me when I was in trouble." Oliver sized Daniel up, awareness dawning in his eyes. "I've heard rumors about a reclusive investor named Brooks. You're him. Figures. The wealthy always stick together." Daniel took a measured step forward. "Ava is free to choose her own path. If that path doesn't include you, respect that." Oliver's arrogance twisted into fury. "You think you can steal my bride and not face consequences? Her father wants her back, and I want my deal." Ava glared. "I'm not property, and you're not my fiancé." Oliver scoffed. "You're just a little girl playing at being independent. You'll come crawling back once you see that life out here isn't so pretty." Daniel's patience snapped. "She's not crawling anywhere, especially not to you." Seeing the confrontation was escalating, Ava intervened, stepping between them. "Stop it. There's nothing else to say, Oliver. If my father wants to talk, he can meet me on my terms. But I'm not returning home." Oliver, incensed, jabbed a finger at Daniel. "This isn't over. I'll see to that." Then he pivoted, storming off in a swirl of expensive cologne and wounded pride. Ava exhaled shakily, tears threatening. Daniel gently touched her shoulder. "You okay?" She nodded. "I'm so tired of running." He gave a rueful grin. "Then maybe it's time we stop." They decided to confront Henry Parker directly, to end the chase once and for all. That evening, Ava called her father from a new phone, gave him an address, a neutral upscale restaurant downtown, and told him to come alone. Henry arrived at the restaurant's private dining room with a stern expression. Ava and Daniel sat side by side at a polished wooden table. The older man hardly spared Daniel a glance at first, eyes drilling into his daughter. "Ava," he said tersely, "you've caused quite a stir. Do you have any idea how close we are to bankruptcy? We needed that partnership." Ava's chest tightened with guilt, but she forced herself to remain resolute. "I'm sorry about the company, Dad, but I won't sacrifice my life just to fix your financial mismanagement. You've known for months that I wasn't happy about marrying Oliver, yet you tried to push me anyway." Henry's nostrils flared. "That's how these alliances work. You were raised to understand that sometimes personal desires come second to the greater good." Daniel cleared his throat, drawing Henry's attention at last. "Mr. Parker, I'm Daniel Brooks. I understand your company is struggling." Henry eyed him warily. "Yes, and I see you've charmed my daughter, but that doesn't solve my problems. I needed the Harringtons' shipping connections." Daniel leaned forward, calm. "I can't provide shipping routes, but I can offer an alternative. My company is always looking for real estate expansions. We could forge a partnership, one without forcing your daughter into a marriage." Henry's eyes widened. "You're with Brooks Consolidated?" A slight smile curved Daniel's lips. "I own it. I've studied Parker Real Estate's portfolio. There's potential. If you're willing to negotiate in good faith and leave your daughter's private life out of it, there might be a beneficial arrangement." For a moment, Henry was speechless. Then a wave of realization washed over his face. The man who'd been sheltering his runaway daughter was not just a random good Samaritan, but a powerhouse in the business world, capable of rescuing his company. He looked at Ava, then back at Daniel. Anger and desperation warred on his features. Finally, he bowed his head slightly. "All right, let's talk." The conversation that followed was tense, but for the first time, Ava witnessed her father negotiating with her interests in mind, not as a commodity, but as an individual. Daniel made clear that his potential partnership hinged on Henry dropping any attempts to force Ava's return or coerce her into an unwanted marriage. An hour later, Henry left the restaurant subdued but cooperative. The deal wasn't finalized, but a path was laid for Parker Real Estate's survival, without binding Ava to Oliver Harrington. Outside, under the glow of streetlights, Ava breathed in the crisp night air. She turned to Daniel, her eyes reflecting relief and cautious excitement. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. I never expected to find someone who'd stand up for me like that." Daniel's gaze was warm. "You stood up for yourself, Ava. I just gave you an assist." She smiled softly, heart thudding. "Still, it means a lot. You risked your anonymity, your time, and so much else." He stepped closer, gently brushing a lock of hair from her cheek. "I don't regret it. I've spent years hiding who I am. Maybe it's time I stop running, too." Her cheeks flushed with a rush of emotion. "So what happens now?" He considered her question, then threaded his fingers through hers. "We can figure it out together, if you want." Ava felt tears gather at the corners of her eyes, but they were tears of relief, of hope. In a matter of days, her life had spun from suffocating obligations to newfound freedom, and an unexpected bond with a man who understood the weight of hidden identities. She squeezed his hand. "I want that." They walked away from the restaurant, the city lights twinkling overhead. For the first time, Ava felt truly alive, liberated from a forced wedding and the constraints of a family empire. And beside her was Daniel, who had quietly guided her to a place of self-discovery, even as he navigated his own complicated world of wealth and secrecy. In the months to come, their relationship would deepen, built on mutual respect and independence. Henry Parker, facing no choice, accepted that his daughter's happiness trumped any business deal. Oliver Harrington seethed, but without leverage, he retreated. And Ava? She had run from the altar, crashed into a stranger's car, and ended up forging her own path. What began in a moment of desperation became an invitation to something real, something worth fighting for. Thank you for reading A Rebellious Bride Runs Away from Her Wedding, crashing into a stranger's car, who turns out to be a hidden billionaire. We hope this story captured your imagination and stirred your emotions. If you enjoyed this tale, we invite you to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with more captivating narratives filled with drama, hope, and unexpected twists. Join Soul-Stirring Stories today and never miss another moving journey.